Okay, this recording is to prepare you for the next assignment in your project, which is to create some simple wireframes for the interface. Now I know this is not a web design class, not a web development class even, but creating some of these wireframes, very simple, can, in my experience, can really help with giving you a clearer idea about what the tables need to be doing and even how they're going to relate to each other in some cases. There are a lot of different wireframing tools out there, and I mean a lot of them. Most of them cost money, some of them are free. Most of them require you to register for some kind of account. I'm going to diagrams.net. This is the one I recommend. It's very simple to use, and it doesn't even really require you to sign up for an account. I mean, I've got one, but I have not signed on this machine, so I'm just going to see if it lets me get in and start working without being logged in or anything. This used to be draw.io for a long time, and now it's just diagrams.net. It does a lot more than just wireframing, as you'll see. But I'm just here. It's diagrams.net is the address. I'm going to click the big shiny Start Now button, and it opens up a new tab and will take me into a place where I can create a new diagram or open something existing. And it's going to ask me where I want to save it to. What I mean, I'm going to call this U3 demo. You probably want to name it after your app name in some way. And then for the different kinds of templates over here, there is a wireframe section down here. If I tap on that, then it's got some existing ones that are more or less like desktop based. But you don't have to select any of these. You can just grab it. It really doesn't matter which of these you select. Just go ahead and click on Create, and it should give you this blank thing here. And you can start working in the sandbox, and then you can save your file and so on. So this is u3demo.draw.io. I'm surprised it didn't ask me where I wanted it to save. Oh, you know what? I probably already told it that. So anyway, this is your interface. Most of the time you'll spend working over here and then in the actual diagram panel here. And there's a few, you choose from your shapes over here, and general is open by default, but there's a whole bunch of them, right? And there's more that you can get, and I'm going to have you do that right away. You can search for particular shapes, like if I want to search for button, then I can search this and it'll give me at least some of what I've got available. Scratchpad is really handy. Once I create something here that I might need to reuse, I can just drag it into the Scratchpad and then drag it out again, or just click it whenever I want to use it. And the cool thing is that this can span across multiple projects too. Stuff that I put in the Scratchpad will stay there. So if I come up with a nice container that I like, I can use it for the next project easily too, without having to, copy and paste between projects or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to right away choose more shapes than what we've got here, because we're going to need them pretty quick. Notice that they've got these categories here. There's arrows, flowchart, entity relation. That might sound familiar to you guys, right? EER diagrams. This is some kind of, yeah, I've never used this one. But anyway, click on more shapes, the button down here. And then for now, you can uncheck the ones you don't think you're going to need. Like I'll probably uncheck arrow and flowchart and entity relation and the UML. I don't think I'm going to need that. Just to kind of simplify the list on the left for myself. But then I'm going to check some stuff here. If I go down here, there is mockups. And this is the stuff that's going to be immediately useful for wireframes. There's going to be some other ones that we add in just a little bit here, but let's go ahead and start with this one. So we'll go ahead and click apply, and then it shows over here, and it's not just one category. You click on mockups, and it's got a whole bunch of different categories down here: buttons, containers, forms, graphics, etc. So let's go ahead and get started. So first off, I'm just creating a little visual representation of each screen that I plan to create database tables for and to query the database tables for. And it's going to be very few. The temptation, I think, at the beginning is to, okay, so like everything in my features list, I've got to have a separate screen for, but that's not actually the way it usually works out. Usually several different functionalities in your features list will go into a single screen. For instance, when you have a login screen, that's going to probably be the same screen as signing up for a new account, or like forget password, stuff like that. It's probably all going to be contained within one screen. And then you might think, okay, well, there's several different searches that someone can do, but they're all basically the same interface. So you'll just create a wireframe just for the basic search screen, even if there might be multiple different versions of it in your actual app. You just kind of condense it all into one. So I'm going to go into, I'm starting with the general here. And I'm just going to start with this guy right here. If you hover over him, it'll let you know what it is. And friendly, gives you a little preview, which is nice. Vertical container, the only thing I don't like about this, I'm just going to click and drag, is that it's not really vertical, except that it's got the heading up top here. So I'm just going to drag this down until it is kind of vertical, something like that. And yeah, so I'm going to start putting some stuff in here, and I'm going to start modifying things and styling things. Now, keep in mind, the style doesn't really matter all that much at this point. We're just creating really little diagrams of what the functionality of each page is. But I know to some extent you guys might have some visual sense, and you might want to change the way it looks. By the way, this little icon up here, you can just collapse this anytime you want to get it out of the way and then open it back up again. But yeah, if you go to style, for instance, over here on the right, then you can choose from these different styles, and as you hover over each one, it kind of lets you know and what it's going to look like over here. And there's a couple of screens of these, and I think I'm going to do this guy right here. There we go, just kind of a sky blue thing from my little app. And you can go in and edit this text too, like where it says vertical container. You can double click in there and get to the text, and I'll just call this my app, or what have you. And then the welcome screen is going to be the sign-in screen. So by the way, keep in mind, I mean, I'm doing this like, this looks like kind of a mobile device, like a handheld device, a phone or something like that. But again, it's just a representation of the stuff that's going to be on there, the functionality. And as it turns out, these little mobile screens are probably the best at condensing those down into just the necessary elements. So it's why I do this instead of like a wider desktop type view. Okay, so this is going to be the welcome and sign in and new user screen here. So I'm going to start looking for fields here. I know I'm going to want like a text field where a user can enter their name, and another one where they can enter their password and so on. So I can start by doing searches up here, search shapes, and if I just type in field, for instance, and hit enter, then it gives me some of these. So like for, hey, look, here's a name field. So if I click on that, it plants it down here. The very next one is a password field. So I can click that. It puts it down in the same spot. So I just kind of drag it underneath the other one. And we're doing kind of portrait orientation. So I'm going to pull these in a bit. But I just wanted to point out something that's important to know about this interface before you use it, because it can cause you some headaches if you're not, prepared for it or expecting it. This text field is still yay wide, even though it's not visible. To move these, I'm going to click and drag across the whole thing. I got to catch the whole thing or else it won't work, which actually is kind of handy. And then when I drag this in here, check out what happens to this interface or the container. When I drag these into it and it's played, okay, I'll put them right there. Look what it did. It made the app container wider in order to fit those. Now, sometimes that's really handy. But in this case, it's not, because I want all these to be the same size, or else it's going to be visually confusing. So let me do Control Z. And just before getting started, I will take these text fields and just make them the same width as the actual, or not the text fields, but the cues. Make them the same width as the fields. And then when I drag this in, we got to click and drag across the whole thing to get it, and then I drag it in, and boom, then that works much better. Okay, so getting those guys in there. Just the most basic, as it can look. Now I can kind of add these in one at a time. I'm going to need like a sign in button underneath these, or a go button, and then a forgot button, password link, new user sign up thing. I can kind of add all these, but it might be worth checking out what else is available. For this, let me close up general. It's a good idea to close whichever one you're not using, because it can get kind of messy over here. And look, there's a section on mockups called mockup forms, and if I drop this down, there's all kinds of things. There's radio button, there's select boxes, and so on. And this last one here in the fourth row is, a sign in. It's like it's got the whole screen here. Okay, so if I click that and take a look at how it looks, and yeah, okay, that looks good. That's going to be easier than adding these one at a time. So if you've got something like that, then go ahead and just slap it in there. No reason not to, right? I'm having trouble selecting that text box in there to get rid of it. Maybe I got it. Must have gotten it. Okay, so this is one element here. I can just click on it, and when I move it, all the other elements go with it. So I'm just gonna plunk it right in there. There we go. And I guess one down. I think I made this thing. I like to align these, and I think I made this a little bit too tall. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so here's your basic sign-in page or screen. It doesn't look very good. It doesn't have to look good. Just there to show what's happening on the screen. If you really don't like some of it, then you can go into this text. This is the part that really bugs me, is the text size. So I can go in there, select the text, and actually it's going to be easier just to single click on it. So like when you first click on it, it's going to grab the largest group element, but if you click again, then it'll get the smaller element in here. I'll go to text and just reduce the size of this text a little bit, because that just looks kind of, well, bad. So 12, I don't know, maybe 14 would be better, but I'm just going to go ahead and reduce it to 12 here. It's just to show that, yeah, you can change things. If something's really bugging you, go ahead and change it, but you don't have to. It's not an issue. Okay, so this is probably all I need for my welcome screen. It's already kind of custom built for me. So the thing I want to do before moving on to the next screen is kind of label this one. Now you could label it by the functionality. You could say down here, okay, welcome slash, login slash new user. I think that what's kind of useful here, I'm going to go up to the search field here and type in title. It gives me this guy here. And I'm going to position it down here. What I find helpful with these is to put in which table on the database I'm expecting this to be related to, right? So you've got your features list. Hopefully you've got your features list in sections, like, this is what goes into the user table. This is what goes into, I'll go ahead and use the cards example, the cards table, and then there's going to be collections and wish lists for each user. So let me take the text size down a little bit here, maybe 18. I'm going to put it, instead of like putting in like what the functionality is here, I'm going to say this goes into users. So I personally find that useful. So this whole thing here relates to the users table in the database that I'm expecting to build, right? This is not, it has nothing to do with the cards, it has nothing to do with the collections or wish lists. It's just the user information, profiles, login, authorization, and so on. All that stuff goes into, and by creating a new user, right? Or anything like forgetting password, if you're going to grab the password and email it to somebody, all that stuff goes into the users table. So just go ahead and put something like that. It's up to you. You can either do that, or you could do the classic kind of, just describing what actually happens up here. It's up to you. So let's see here. I think it's time for the next screen. So I'm just going to grab this guy and just do a simple copy and paste for now. So I'll do Control-C for copy, Control-V for paste. It puts it right down here so I can see both of them. And I'll just take this whole thing and drag it over here. This is going to be my next screen, so I don't no longer need this login bit here. Just click on that and delete it. Now the first thing I'm going to put in there is the stuff that I expect to be on every screen. And that is, that might be a title. Like a larger title for your app here. It certainly will be some navigation. So for a title, we've already got the title up here. You can do that if you want to. In fact, I will do that. I'll go ahead and put my app. I like to make these the full width when I remember to. It just seems to be handier that way. If I add text or whatever, it's nothing weird happens to it. So maybe you go in here and my app, and maybe that means that you go into the heading and you delete the text. I don't know. It's up to you. So this is one possibility. I think I'm going to go ahead and just leave it in the status bar up there. I think that it works. It lets me know what app it is. But if you want to put a larger title, you certainly can down here. Okay, and so the next screen, let's say once they get logged in, they're presented with a screen. Oh wait, I was thinking, okay, so this is going to be the search cards things, but first let me get that navigation in. Okay, so this is one place where like the standard stuff in here is really lacking. So if I type in navigation here, like this, and I can find some things here, like say, okay, you could use something like this if you wanted to, and put it at the bottom, say, and resize it so it fits, and then you could go to the style, and you could select a different color for it or what have you. But I don't really like the way that looks. Again, it doesn't really matter, but even if I go down here to like mock up navigation, there's not a whole lot that's like, I mean, I'm not going to say it's not useful. It's just it doesn't have the basic like navigation bar that I'm looking for. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add more of these shape libraries here. Click on more shapes again. And there's some useful ones in here for fancy stuff like Android, Bootstrap, which is a front-end framework for web development. There's iOS. And I think those are the three that I'm going to add Atlassian. I'm not sure what that is. But yeah, like Android and Bootstrap and iOS. And it'll give me extra stuff from there. So like Bootstrap here, Android, if I click on Android and drop it down, try that again. There we go. And you see there's all kinds of stuff. And by the way, you can start with these too. If you don't want to look at this kind of ugly screen here, I mean, you could definitely start with one of these Android phone, frames if you wanted to, if you like that better. And they've got the iOS ones in there too. So anyway, the one that I found that I like, I think I went into iOS icons. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for navigation. No, it wasn't iOS icon. Sorry, it was iOS UI, user interface. And I think that right up top here somewhere, I found, there we go, horizontal button bar. That's exactly what I wanted, right? I just need something to show that there's some navigation down there. So I click on that and place it down here at the bottom, tuck it down out of the way, and then let's resize it if it's going to let me. Yes, it did, and it went a little too far. There we go, and then size it up too. Maybe I'll fill this block up, and there we go. So we've got some navigation. You don't need to put in specifics of the navigation. That's really kind of a user interface thing, and it's not necessary. It's enough to know that there's navigation. Okay, and actually, some people would say, hey, you don't even need to put that in because it's just understood that the user needs some way of getting around the interface. But anyway, I like to put it in there. And now that we've got this is a basic like container screen now that I might expect to use any number of times for the interior screens, not for the home screen because that's going to be different. Navigation should not show up until after you've logged in, right? But anyway, yeah, this is my basic container now, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it into Scratchpad so that I can keep reusing it whenever I want to. So I'm going to grab this whole thing, drag it into Scratchpad, drop it off, and there it is right there. When I need it again for the next screen, I will just be able to drag it right out and position it where I want it to be. Okay, so this is going to be a search field here. So up in here in search, I'm going to type in search. And it should give me some possibilities. Oh, there's more results. There's other search fields in Android and Bootstrap and so on. So if you wanted to check those out, you certainly could. You could make this look as slick as you want to. I'm just going to use the basic one right here. It's fine. Somewhere here maybe. And then I might want to give it a little bit of title. Really, this is enough, right? It lets you know that there is a search going on here. But if you wanted to be, really crystal clear about it, just double click if you want to just place some text, and text is the first option here. And just type in like search for cards. Something like that. That's fine. As if you're doing a little bit of a search queue there for the users, and kind of if you are, you would want something like that anyway, but it kind of lets you, the viewer of the wireframes, know what this is about too. And this is probably all you need. I mean, remember the simplicity of Google's search page and go for something like that, something simple. I'm going to take this title, copy it, and paste it, put it over here. I could put it into the Scratchpad, but it's so simple just to do this. And even if I lost them all, it'd be easy enough to redo it, right? So this one is going to be just searching for cards, so it's no longer a users table thing, it's a cards table thing. And so this is, see, I find that super useful personally. I find that really helpful when I'm looking at wireframes and so on. Okay, so I think that is it for the search page. So searching for cards. Let's go ahead and make the next screen where someone has searched in here. Like I think I looked for abomination in the MTG cards. And so when the user searches, and then it's going to take them to another screen where it's got a list of returned cards. So let's make a new screen here, and I'm just going to go to the scratch pad. Remember this guy? I can either just click or I can drag it out and place it where I want it to be, like right there. And keep these neat. And looky there, isn't that handy? Just got it. I love that it's got the scratch pad there. So this is going to be a list. So yeah, you can go up here and just type in list and try out some of these. Now these are pretty, they're not very good looking, so you could try one of the other libraries if you want to. I think that I went to like mockup, was it forms? And yeah, there's a list box there. And again, it's super simple. You would not want to just style it like this because it's not very good looking. But yeah, just something like this is fine. I'm just showing you that, yeah, you got a list of items there. That's all you need. That's a wireframe. They're supposed to be simple. Let's see. So I'll go ahead and, again, copy this, paste it, put it over here. This is also a cards thing, right? Because this data is being retrieved from the cards table. And I'm just going to do one more screen here because most of yours are going to be 4 or 5 screens, I'm expecting. Something in that range. And again, it's very tempting to make too many screens at first, and very often you realize that some of the functionality can just be combined into a single screen, or fewer than you had in any case. So I'll do one more screen. Notice that this kind of graph paper on the canvas ends there, but if I put other elements in here, it'll extend it out for me, so you don't have to worry about like trying to fit everything into here. Watch what happens if I grab one of these scratch pad containers out here and drop it off. You see it just extends it further. So as far as I know, it's infinite. It's certainly large enough that you will not run into any problems. So let's say the user has selected the card here. The card needs to show up here. So let's say I want to put a big image. So the images here for wireframes and thumbnail sketches and so on, an image should be a shape with an X through it from corner to corner. Designers the world over know that that means image. So I think that we go to mockup graphics is the place it is, and there's one, the icon placeholder, and drag and bring that in. We put it up here or so, and make it look like a card. Maybe something like, I don't know. I can fill up the whole thing here pretty much. And when that happens, I mean, you could say, okay, well, I've got a couple of buttons planned for here and a card title and so on. I don't have room for all this stuff. And start layering stuff up. Remember, this is just to kind of show what's there. So let me grab, instead of just a title, I want like a title and a description maybe. So let me see what it's got for text up here. And yeah, it's showing me that I can double click anywhere like we showed. And I think what I want is just the heading and text box here. And let me pull this off to the side a little bit and edit it down a bit. So instead of heading here, I'm going to have card title. And instead of all of this placeholder text, which is this lorem ipsum text, if you need to generate this for wireframes, you can look up lorem ipsum. It's lipsum.org. At least it used to be. But here, just, card description. And probably, let's see, I'm going to want that a little narrower, I think, make sure it fits into the card. And then go to text over here and just maybe center it. And then place it over the image, right in the middle there. And maybe change the text color here. Change it to white. Click apply. Okay. So there's a way that you can kind of layer things over the top if you feel like you're running out of room, or you could use a wider, container for your wireframe or what have you. I'm a designer, so of course the type is bugging me, but where's the top -20, blah, blah, blah. I was looking for line height somewhere and I'm not seeing it. But anyway, that's okay, doesn't matter. So last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of buttons down here, probably also on top of the image. so that one of them will be to add this to the collection, user's collection, the other one to be added to the user's wish list, like this. And then there would be other stuff after that where they would have to put in the quality, the quality, whether or not it has foil and so on. But I'm going to stop here. So up here again, go to the search field on the left and type in button. And now that we've added like these fancy libraries from Android and iOS and so on, some of these results are going to be included in there. So for instance, this guy right down here, button primary, this is from the Android. Oh, no, I'm sorry, this is from the Bootstrap library. And so if I grab one of those and put it on here, I'm going to call this one plus collection. And then I will copy and paste that. Sorry, trackpad. There we go. And I will call this one plus wish list. So, oops. Then I will grab both of them and put them over the top of my image, maybe something like that, and that's perfectly fine. So it's getting a little bit too much into, it looks like I'm getting too designy with it maybe, but layering things on top of each other. But again, it's just to kind of fit everything in there. And this might actually be the way it would work out on mobile, something like that. But it wouldn't have to. What I'm doing here is not a directive for how to design the screens. I'm just trying to get all the stuff in there, and that's it. I will once again give the title to the whole screen here. I'm going to copy and paste this. And this one really, everything on the screen here is still being pulled from cards, but the functionality of the screen here is to add the card to a collection or the wish list. So I'm not going to put cards down here. I'm going to put collection/wish list, like so. Meaning that, yeah, this will involve one or both of these user-specific tables, collection or wish list. Okay, so I'll stop there. These are the 4 screens that I got so far. And let me control Z that. I did not intend to do that. Zoom out a bit so we could see all 4 of them. There we go. So something like this would be absolutely fine. By the way, you don't have to use this tool. You saw the tool that Daniel used, and he just basically grabbed, I think he worked in like MS Paint or something. Like, seriously, you can just make boxes and give little titles to them, and it's fine. It's perfectly fine. I'm not going to be judging you on design. But if you can get used to using a tool like this, you can get some decent looking wireframes like right off the bat without knowing the design stuff here. So I'm going to go ahead and click here to save. You should probably save before that, by the way. I don't even know where it's saving. I guess it's just saving to downloads. But I think that you can specify like a particular folder to save to. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording there. I'll see you in class.